Swisher is on the show, and she's hosted hundreds of interviews going head-to-head with prominent figures including Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Rupert Murdoch, and President Barack Obama, to name only a few. Her latest book, Burn Book, A Tech Love Story, became an instant New York Times bestseller. She hosts the Juggernaut podcast, Pivot, with her co-host, NYU professor Scott Galloway. And she's also the host of On with Kara Swisher. So she joins me today to talk about all the good and all the bad with big tech. Are we going to live forever? What can AI do for us? How do we protect our privacy? Plus, she takes me on head-to-head, but I think we've found some common ground. At least I hope so. Enjoy the show.
Keeping It Real with Jillian Michaels.
There's no conversation that I would not be open to. Mm-hmm. And what I find kind of interesting is you had said to one of the guys that we work with here at VIU, like, oh, is she gonna try to go after me with her right-wing Republican stuff? I'm not a right-wing Republican. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that?
Oh, I just I was teasing, actually. In that case.
I don't mind if you think, I just want to understand what I said that made you think that.
Some of your trans stuff seems unduly cruel.
Talk to me about it.
Well, it seems cruel. It seems there's a lot, because I think it's more complex. And I think what's happened in our society is we've reduced things to teams almost, like sports. And so if you're for this, you're against this. You can't have any nuanced discussion around, say, Israel or trans issues or everything else. You have to either win or lose an argument and not discuss
I haven't said anything like that. That's just not true. No. In fact, on the biological females playing with transgender athletes, I just gave an entire 30-minute interview where I said that it is extremely nuanced, that each governing body needs to look at their unique sport,
That's correct.
that there are solutions we need to arrive at, whether is it a third league in some cases, is it a certain handicap based on the studies? Because I have looked at a huge amount of the studies. And based off of what was reviewed with me, with exercise physiologists that I work with,
You're talking specifically about sports, and that is a difficult discussion. That is no question complex, difficult. If you were a woman athlete, you'd have issues. Some do, some don't. It depends on the person.
Of course.
I spent 1 week where I interviewed Caster Semenya, who's the runner who was born with both genders, and so she didn't do anything. She didn't even know this was the case until she was tested much later. So this is not an activist or someone that, that wants to, this is just who she is.
Right.
So I interviewed her 1 week talking about this and how she was subjected to all kinds of random and strange rules that were never decided, right? It was never discussed or decided. They just knocked her out without any kind of ability to even know what was happening to her. And then the same week I interviewed Martina Navratilova, who has a set of opinions about this, which have changed and morphed over the years. And it's fine to have these discussions about sports because it's so complex. And there's two issues with the sports thing. Is it a real problem or is it a manufactured right-wing problem in order for the right to attack on all trans issues?
Okay.
Which they tend to do.
And I hear you on this one, but I would say, if it's a transphobic issue, why is there no outrage with transgender boys playing in boys' sports?
Right, I get it, but they're taking, what you're doing is you're letting them take an issue like sports, which is very complex and nuanced.
Yes.
And shift it into the transphobic space,
which you say you're doing.
No, not you. I'm saying one, not you in particular. I don't think you're at the head of this army.
But a second ago, you're cruel in your opinion on this, and I'm explaining it to you.
When you're discussing it, it's often. Look, first of all, it's not that big a topic that it's taking up this much oxygen in our society. That's what's fascinating about it.
There are millions of female athletes.
I agree with you, but nonetheless, of the issues that we face as a country, I don't think this is at the very top. This is your issues.
This is what I'm trying to say.
I get that.
This is my
fitness,
wheelhouse.
Are you sports? Competitive sports is different than
my wife was a D1 athlete in field hockey.
Yeah.
My daughter plays sports. My son plays sports. My X is...
My children play sports. I get the issue, and I think it's a big issue to discuss and figure out. But what my worry is that in discussing it and making it so emotional and difficult, rather than figuring out a solution for the problem, is it then veers out into other it's a wedge issue that the right is using.
You're right, it's a political football.
But they're trying to use it, and you're being used in that. If you can have an opinion about that.
How am I being used in?
One does. They tried.
In fact,
for years.
I'm engaging in the conversation that you're talking about, which would hopefully...
Correct. Come to a conclusion.
And I even was on Cuomo saying this predator conversation needs to stop immediately.
That's correct.
And so I would argue that I'm asking the right to...
Certainly. But when you're doing it and you're having these discussions, example, a friend of mine, Stephanie Ruhle, she did an interview with Jim Justice, who was governor of I think that's who it was, for the governor of West Virginia. And they passed a law against transgender athletes. And she said, how many instances do you have in your state? And he goes, well, I don't really know that. And she goes, I think you do know that. None, zero. So I'm saying this is a legislature that has problems with tens of different things: poverty, children don't have enough food, everything. This is a legislature that has real problems,
right?
And this is what they're spending their legislative time doing when they have no instances of it.
But
so
I'm
that's
not
all I'm saying.
Speaking to that, though,
I understand that, but what happens is, whether you realize it or not, you're becoming a weapon by they're trying to. They weren't able to turn the bathroom issue. Remember a couple of years ago, they were all worried about transgender people going in and bothering little girls. Exactly. It didn't work.
I've always completely dismissed that argument.
It didn't work. And so they moved on to sports, which is a much more complex and difficult issue, especially if you're a parent of a female athlete. It's a big deal. If these girls have worked so hard to get to where they are, they shouldn't compete unfairly with other people.
So then why do you have a problem with that argument?
First of all, I think it's much more complex, and we should all have a discussion about it.
Agree.
I agree
with you.
Because the problem I have is it's being used by the right, who's pretending they're concerned with girl athletes, when what they're really trying to do is go after trans people in general. And honestly, the reason they're going after trans people is because they're still angry about what gay people have gotten, which is marriage, adoption, full rights as citizens. You're all over here,
I'm curious.
And they're aiming. They're the most cynical people on earth. They have never gotten over the loss of gay marriage. This is what they're actually going for, and you're over here arguing this.
Okay, hear me out. And I understand what you're saying. But my feeling on it is that in order to have that conversation with the right, you also need to acknowledge some of the points.
I absolutely acknowledge. I acknowledge on the sports issue, but that's not what they're doing. They're doing this over here so that they can do this over here.
But I do genuinely think it is unfair. And it is my wheelhouse car. And
certainly. You may think about that, but I think you're being, without you realizing it, you're being used for another thing. The same thing with parental rights and book banning and everything else. They're not, this is not what they're doing.
Realize the left won't even have the conversation.
About it? That's not true. That is not true.
It is true.
That is not true.
It is so true.
It is.
Okay,
I'm on the left. I'm having it. I think
you're
it is
the
a problem.
only one.
Okay.
Okay, so hold on. I wrote an entire op-ed about it. In the most nuanced fashion. I'll send it to you, shred it on your podcast if you want,
I
right?
shall not. Go ahead.
And I said, listen, this is nuanced, this is complex, all the things you and I talked about, right? You know, there's a huge amount of data that shows advantages, but you know, by what percentage? Could we discuss a potential handicap? Could we discuss a potential third league? You have to understand the inclusion piece and be empathetic to that. All the different things. I've written op-eds for Newsweek. Do you think any of them took it? No. Do you think any of the more liberal media channels would engage in the conversation with me? No. So, and if you think that I'm here, talk to me.
Okay, they're not engaging with you. They've certainly engaged with Martina. They've engaged with all kinds of people who believe there's issues and had very fulsome debates about the situation. It's just that what they're doing over here, and excuse me for thinking they're cynical because I've watched them operate over the many years, they're not concerned. Some of them, the parents are concerned about their daughters, 100%, but they're being used by a group of people that are trying to do something else. And so they're doing this over here while they're actually aiming for this over here.
But then how do we deal with the actual issue that people do take umbrage with?
It would be very nice if they weren't quite so cynical in what they're actually aiming for, which is you're a parent, you're a gay parent of children. They would like that to stop. Trust me when you listen to them. When you go down their rabbit holes, that's where they're headed.
And if you don't think that I absolutely see that, I would ask you to go look at my most recent Twitter posts.
Right. I'm not on Twitter anymore.
Well,
so
okay. And
I actually am on Twitter, but I'm not.
Well, I saw that. I wanted to talk to you about, your thoughts on all of that. But believe it or not, I have all these tech questions
go for
you.
it. Go for
But I like the fact that, listen, I like that you're talking to me because most don't, I'll be honest. And Jon Stewart this article just came out that nobody on the left will sit with him. Nobody, no pundits, no
Well, they're mad
journalists.
about the age thing. They're just what's happened is, and this
Tell
is
me, I don't
absolutely
even know what that
What
means.
happened is he was talking about Biden being too old to be president, and they got mad at him for doing that.
Why though?
Because that's what people do. But look, all the focus is on how mad the left is when the right is just as mad.
I agree with you.
But they're just better at being
But they
mad.
will at least listen.
Are they listening?
Okay.
Are they listening?
I just gave an entire interview to Fox about why, as a gay person, we have felt that the religious community has snubbed our equal rights to marriage. I just gave an entire interview
Well, they
to them
didn't
about
snub
that.
it. They tried to stop it. Snub is a
I've
nice
said
way of putting it. Right.
I said there was $83 million spent by religious communities on Proposition 8 to
I
block
remember.
our right to adopt. I'm telling them to their faces, guys, this is where the acrimony is coming from. Now, I really wish, in my personal opinion, that we hadn't kind of done with the Last Supper because I think
Come on.
They care a lot.
Yes, well then don't watch it.
It's the Olympics, Cara.
The French can do whatever they want. Here they talk about personal freedom and freedom of speech, but when someone exercises it, it's offensive. They sit around and talk about the woke left when they're. But it wasn't. This is the French. Let them do what they want. It's their Olympics. But it's none of your business.
Well, guess what it's turned into? I'm sure you've seen it.
But it hasn't turned into something. Most people do not.
It hasn't turned into something.
With the right, because the religious right is perpetually offended by anything that isn't 1950 and straight. They will never be.
My mother is as left as it gets, and she's like, why?
Well, then she shouldn't watch it. I don't know what to say. If you're for free speech, and you really are, they should be able to do that.
It's not about
I didn't like
censorship.
it. I turned it off.
It's that okay, when I'm trying, in my opinion, to get people to look at an Andrew Tate screaming on his social media and be like, okay, let's admonish that behavior, right? I'm trying to.
I don't even want to admonish him.
I want the right to stop with this. I think that gay marriage, and I even said we're deeply concerned that Amy Coney Barrett is religious and is going to take away our right to federally recognize.
I don't know about her in particular, but
I'm confronting them on the subject matter, and I'm explaining the concern. But when I feel I'm asking, hey, I want to live and let live. I want tolerance. Leave all these things out of it, right? The things that you're talking about. I think a giant FU to the Last Supper is not a good idea.
Honestly, art is all about that. Remember Piss Christ many years ago at the Corcoran Gallery?
What are you trying to accomplish? Free speech or tolerance?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't. Why? So you have to be.
Because for me, I want tolerance. I want less divisiveness.
Then in that case, the right's pretty fucking woke if they can't deal with just a stupid thing. Like they can't. They're pretty woke if they can't be so overly sensitive.
Like you're being naive.
No, the left is not allowed to be woke, but the right is. That's what they're being. If they don't want to watch it, here, click. You can turn, and actually, you don't have to get up off your couch to turn it off.
I feel that now we are taking something like the Olympics that has nothing to do with a woke agenda. Right? And stuffing it in their face, thumbing our nose at their religion.
It's the French. It's another country.
Olympics.
Don't live in France.
Global.
But it's not global. It's run by France. Like they're mad at France. Well, there's a whole line of things.
They're mad at us. And
why?
I say us because
we didn't make it.
I know you're saying why, but just you saying why doesn't mean it isn't, right?
They can be as offended as they want, but once again...
I don't think that helps us.
So we have to sit and hold their hands because they can't take something? That's what they accuse the left of being. They accuse the left of being woke.
I want them to be tolerant of us. And I feel that if we show a lack of respect, but why do two wrongs, right?
It doesn't.
Why fight fire
Jillian,
with
it's
fire?
the French. Again, I don't quite know what we can do about it. If the French want to run their thing, and the French, the government, whoever put it together, apologized. So I don't know what to say. It's first of all, it's not
You
within
don't
our.
need to say. You're telling me that I'm being weaponized by the right, and I'm trying to show you that I find they're more willing to engage in these conversations.
Engaging is different than actually passing laws, and the laws they're passing are all against your family. Just so you know, they can sit there and say, "Oh, we're listening to you, Jillian," and then in the same time pass law after law after law that is anti-gay family. Because they're nice to you. 'Cause
Almost more to my point, though,
But
that I want them to advocate
But they're
on my
not going to,
behalf.
because while they're being nice to you with their left hand, they're fucking you with your right hand.
But that
They
to me is a
are.
sweeping
But
generalization.
they're not. There's dozens and dozens of anti-gay laws, and all these.
I know.
So
I want
that
to
they listen to
change
you.
that.
Yes, but they're not listening to you.
How do you
They're
propose we do change it then?
vote them out of office so they stop doing these. There's a great, listen, I interview tons of Republicans, and there's a ton of reasonable ones who want to figure things out and have compromise and figure out how do we live together as society. Unfortunately, it's been captured by the right who are intolerant of people's behaviors, whatever they happen to be. Just the way they want us to be tolerant of their behaviors, they are passing. All I pay attention to is what are they actually doing, not what they're saying. What are they doing? And they're passing law after law after law. They don't pass now. A lot of them didn't succeed because they were pushed back on by different people in those states. But they continue to keep trying to pass them. I pay attention to what they're passing. You're annoyed by a left who doesn't pass anything. They just say a lot of things that offend you.
I'm not annoyed.
They're not passing laws
by
about
the
it.
left. There are. Well, they
But they
are. They just
aren't.
changed Title IX.
I'm sorry, I don't know enough about Title IX.
Okay, Title IX is a massive
Yes,
law.
I know what it is.
That was put into place to protect women in sports.
Right. Mhm.
They just changed, but the Biden administration just changed that and wrote in like gender language and all of this. This is a law. You know, the Biden administration is trying to remove any limitation to gender-affirming care on age for children. That's alarming to me. I work in health. I am uniquely aware of what happens to the body when you block puberty. I'm talking about brain development, Cara. I'm not talking about being cruel to trans. And your brain's cooked. You want to become trans?
I understand. Once
Great.
again, listen. A lot of people, it's like the sports thing. This should be absolutely discussed. But to me, the whole issue that's happened is this is a group of people that want the government to. They accuse the left of doing things they're doing. That's what's really.
You're right, but I think vice versa.
Perhaps, but here's it should be a decision. That should be a decision between parents, their doctors, and parents. The children, well, mostly parents and the doctors, to me.
Parents don't understand it. All of this was just...
so now they're stupid? Like, so let's let the government decide? I'm sorry, I have better decision-making over my children, over many children, than the government does.
Have you reviewed the WPATH files?
Which ones? The one from England?
No, that's the CAS review.
Okay. Right.
So the WPATH files was Michael Schellenberger and me.
I don't want to talk about Michael.
You don't like Michael? Okay. Nevertheless.
It's factually inaccurate, so.
Okay, but he did a data dump.
Okay.
So take his opinion out of it and look at the data. And the parents within this organization, right? So they've leaked emails, text messages, video, right? They're acknowledging, the experts within the WPATH are acknowledging that the parents don't understand and the kids don't understand. The kids don't understand they are sterilized. They don't.
I think this is I do not. I think people know what they're doing. It's really interesting because I was just looking at
Elon Musk is not dumb, and he just said I didn't understand.
That's ridiculous. He's lying, Jillian. He's lying.
Okay,
he's lying. He's actually lying to you.
Did you look at the CAS review?
This is the most powerful, richest man on earth, and he's dumb. Give me a break.
So you think he was for it and then changed his mind? I don't know.
I think he's a terrible parent who wasn't available to his kids, and his daughter is speaking out because he's trying to claim her narrative. He's making up ridiculous gay tropes about her. Saying, I knew he was gay because he said fabulous lot. The daughter, who's now daughter, is saying, this is not true. He's using it for his whatever demented reason this man is doing it, but everything he says is untrue. Family members have said it's untrue.
That's fair.
And for him to pretend he didn't know what was going on here's a person who tells you how smart he is every day of the week and twice on Sunday, and here he's dumb. Give me a fucking break.
But, okay, so then you would argue that he just wasn't available.
I think he's a terrible parent.
That's fair. Well, then we'll table that and we'll leave him out. I'm telling you that within the CAS review and within the WPATH files, the parents have been told, if you don't support your child in this, they'll become suicidal. That is the narrative. So the parents are like, oh my God, like I don't want my child to become suicidal. I want them to think I don't love them. And then the transitioning begins, the medicalization piece begins. And that's the part that I personally find, based on the CAS review and the WPATH files, alarming. And it has.
For some kids. Other kids very much should move down these roads.
Do you understand that when you block puberty,
Yes, I do
you're
understand.
impacting the development of their brain?
I do understand.
So how is that okay?
They should be older.
You and I are here.
That's correct.
But then you and I just landed on
you know
the
why
same.
you know why they're
But
weaponizing?
Clara, then we're here together.
Yes, but they're weaponizing it for something else. I'm always paying attention.
Tell me how then I fight for the thing that you just agreed with me on.
You get together with all kinds of doctors. You get together with people who aren't political, who don't have good facts, and acknowledge that, look, I just interviewed Anthony Fauci. The demonization of Anthony Fauci is fascinating to watch. Scientists make mistakes all the time around. I'm not going to get into vaccines with you at this point.
No, I don't actually know a lot about them, I'll be honest. I would love to explore them.
I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to do that. But nonetheless, look.
I can't speak on it.
Look, when you're in the middle of a pandemic, you try your best to figure out what's happening on the ground. Some of them are mistakes, some of them are not. What happens? Weaponization of something that should not be political, which is, you're in the middle of a pandemic, science makes mistakes, they do things that are right. You could argue either way. Was Trump fast enough? There's a report out today that said 250,000 people that died didn't need to. I don't know. Let's bring actual experts in to talk about these things instead of making it a right-wing or a left-wing talking point. It's all being used. Things that aren't political have become political.
I agree.
Something like when and where people who want to change their gender should be able to do it, should be part of a good discussion.
Even Charlie Kirk, who's crazy on the right, just
crazy.
I'm
not
with
talking
you.
about Charlie Kirk.
No, but
another
just listen,
persistent liar.
He's crazy on the right side, right? Even he says, I don't care what you do. It's the kid part of this.
But he does care what you do. He's lying to you.
Oh, that's fair.
He constantly talks about.
But he's not making an issue of it, that part of it right now.
But every other party is. Like, I'm just saying, they make so much noise over here while they're actually doing damage over here. And that's my problem.
Don't disagree that there is damage going on both sides. All I want
there isn't damage going on both sides. There is a lot of
the detransitioning kids.
Some of the detransitioning kids, yes, I have.
Okay.
It's a small group of people.
It isn't Mama. I'm sorry, Mama is a nickname.
It's all right. I am a mother.
It isn't. It's a thing. It's a term of affection that my friends and I don't know where I would dare call you that. I apologize.
Fine.
With that said,
that's what my children call
it's not meant to be
it's fine.
insulting. In my opinion, when Abigail Schreier was on with Bill, she said, since her book came out in 2020, Irreversible Damage, tens of thousands of kids have been transitioned. And I thought, that's absurd now. And in fact, she's right. And it also is a huge business for Big Pharma. And my point is, I just want to allow a kid's brain to develop.
Ask you a question. Why? Tell me why. I know you're in health, but this obviously it gets you going, correct? This issue.
Because they're kids.
Okay.
And I feel that they're the most vulnerable population. It's a very big business. It has a compound annual growth rate of 9+%, right? You've got Lupron from AbbVie that has made almost $1 billion a year. It's a huge industry.
Absolutely.
So I am worried about the children. And
but what you're constructing there is this idea that there's all these. It's a conspiracy-minded. You're not conspiracy-minded.
So you don't think Big Pharma is concerned?
I think I think I have lots of problems with Big Pharma. I've done tons of interviews with people like Amy Klobuchar trying to cut drug prices, Mark Cuban, everything else. But the idea that government is out to get you, companies are out to get you. It's unusual coming from me, but that it's part of a larger, darker conspiracy is the ugly part of the American experience. That there's all these forces gathering together. Look, there's a lot of abuses. There's a lot of abuses by pharmaceutical companies. There's no question about that. But instead of having a real discussion with people, everyone has to go into their camps and decide, oh, it's Big Pharma trying to kill you. Like it's like it's a Hollywood movie. This is not a Hollywood movie. It's something we can all get together, create really smart expertise, argue the points, and then figure out a way forward.
We have, and I'm here to talk about them. So again, when you look at the CAS review, it's a 4-year.
Although now there's been questions around that too.
Like, guess who?
Lots
The
of people. Lots of people.
WPATH.
No, but it's not. I know
It is.
reasonable doctors who are like, oh, this is a problem, this is a problem. See, that's the
But
problem.
they
You
get the
refuse to
information.
accept. You refuse to accept that maybe there's a problem in the CAS report. Maybe there's a problem in this. Maybe there's a problem with this person.
I don't refuse to accept it. When I looked at the criticisms, they all cite the WPATH.
Okay, all right.
And the WPATH is the organization that I just mentioned. So when the WPATH files got dumped, I was deeply alarmed for that reason, because these are the people that are critiquing WPATH as the authority on gender-affirming care. And if you're starting to see Britain pull back, Finland pull back, Sweden pull back, France pull back, and we double down, who's doubling down?
Well, in my feelings, it's become politicized for a very good reason, and it is
Europe?
No, here in this country.
Right.
It's always being used, like for example, let me shift to something else. When they're talking about, if you start to read the actual people, like that, say J.D. Vance likes, there's a list of them.
I'm not a J.D. Vance
I get
fan.
that. Okay, but read what influences him. It's a dark vision of America where the government intervenes in your life in ways that you would wish the left was back in terms of being
But you just told me I was a conspiracy theorist.
No, I'm not saying.
for
I'm saying it's a
thinking that.
conspiracy theory minded that we've moved into. Not you are a conspiracy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
Oh, no,
What I meant to say is
hit me.
that there's a version of our country where everything is a dark plot by nefarious forces instead of trust.
Is in
but
some cases.
It's not. But it's
In
not.
some cases.
Well, perhaps it is in some cases, but there's always been a dark plot of the left and the right. I just finished reading.
I agree with you completely.
I just finished listening to Rachel Maddow's amazing thing about fashion. This is historical stuff. This is stuff that's happened. Everyone's dead. There's all kinds of material about the America First group that was trying very hard using Nazi propaganda to try to convince people. Listen,
I'm sorry, to convince people of what?
Convince people to embrace Hitler versus
here?
Yes, it's incredible, the efforts. Charles Lindbergh, Tom McCormick, who used to run the Chicago Tribune. You know, there were congressmen involved. There was a Nazi agent that was paying off congressmen. Fascinating stuff. There's always been an attempt by whatever side you happen to be on to influence the other side. Right. That is not a new, fresh thing. What's happened is that online has weaponized and amplified a lot of these normal, very American feelings of the man trying to get us, whatever man it happens to be. I try to look at what are they actually passing in these states? What are they actually attempting? What are the actual actions they're taking? And when I look across the country as a parent of 4 children, gay parent of 4 children, none of whom is gay. I have the most cisgendered children on the planet, which is funny. I'm always like, can you be interesting in any way? They're like, the guys are like, the girl is like ballerina. It's like, it's kind of funny. There's no theys among them. I'm like, could one of you be a they? No. It's fine, whatever. I accept them for the straight people they are. But when you're trying to build a family and you look at a lot of these laws across the country, they're actually dangerous for my family, right?
Yes.
They're actually passing the laws in various states. Same thing with abortion issues. They talk about states' rights, but they're also trying to criminalize someone who lives in Arkansas, for example, going to California.
I understand completely.
I'm saying I watch what they do, not what they say. I
can't touch on but for me in my wheelhouse, you're saying, oh, you're cruel to trans people. These are just issues that touch my wheelhouse.
I get that.
Abortion doesn't touch my wheelhouse. Who the fuck am I to lecture people about that?
When you talk about trans people, these people have endured, many of them, I'm talking about adults, this is adults I'm talking about, or younger, when they're younger and moving, have endured so much abuse by society, and you know that's true.
I do, so where's the part, though, that's cruel, though? What have I said that's cruel?
Because when you're talking about it, maybe be a little less like, it's up to a nefarious plot of people trying to turn everybody trans. Listen to their language on the right when they're talking about it. It's as if I don't want a nation of trans people. I want people who feel that way to be able to express themselves that way.
Have you read Irreversible Damage?
I don't like her.
Okay,
I've read
here's
it.
what I would say.
I've read it.
Okay, you hate Abigail Schreier too then?
I don't hate her. I just don't think she's as factual as she could be. I said what
right.
it is everyone's making an argument for their side. I think anything that insists to me that they're 100% right is probably not correct. Even my own book. You can decide what you think, about the tech bros. I have a point of view, but I put it as a
Right.
point. This is my point of view after covering them. You can go off and say, Kara, but Kara, they do this, but Kara. The idea of like being absolutely certain about every one of these books, no matter who they are, whether arguing either side, has got to be completely right. And my experience as a reporter is life is a lot more complex. There's a lot of ups and downs. You can look at it this way, there's exceptions, there's this and that. And I think one of the things that we have to stop doing is being so activist about every single topic, right? That's where I get. And
totally
stick with the
hear
facts
you.
and actually what they're doing in these cities and states. And that's what I like to. What are they passing in Arkansas or Tennessee about women's rights? What are they actually doing?
I'm not speaking on that.
Of course, but
you could absolutely educate me, and I would probably agree with everything you say.
It's interconnected. That's the issue.
But I don't. How is it interconnected when everything does need to be addressed on an issue by issue?
But it can't be because it's part of a larger scheme to try to bring us back to.
Telling me there's no such thing as
no,
these
but
schemes.
but they talk about it explicitly. It's not like that it's hidden. I'm not talking about a conspiracy theory. I'm talking about this is a point of view of one of the things that's really interesting about this cat lady thing about JD, which she's now saying, I was kidding.
I know.
But he wasn't kidding.
I know.
Like, stop it.
I'm not. You don't even have to.
I get it.
I know.
But what it does is if you start to really look at the philosophies and the people they follow, it does follow down a path of things that are linked. Like I am one of the people that are like, can we stop doing identity politics for 5 fucking minutes? I would love that to happen. Like, because I think like African American people should be able to be conservative. Absolutely. People from the South can be liberal. Like you don't have to be identified with or gay people can be conservative. There's plenty of gay people who are conservative. You don't have to buy the line of living like this. But what happens is that it's one thing to argue about it and call people woke. It's another thing when there's a movement across the country to pull back from rights that we have gotten over the years. Now, I do a lot of stuff through the lens of being a gay person and being a parent, really, more than anything else, and being a parent. And my ability to have children and not it be seen as special rights it's changed the world for probably you too.
Yes.
The ability to have kids is a big deal.
Yes.
The idea when, say, someone like J.D. Vance is like childless cat ladies, or the left doesn't believe in the future. Well, I have one more child than he does, so I believe in the future one more child than he does. Why do they need to say that? Why can't they just
totally
assume?
Right. I just had this fight last night, actually.
With who?
With my wife.
What?
Because she is actually probably the person that you thought that I was. Mm-hmm. And I'm constantly, I've got my mom's very far on the left, my wife's very far on the right. And I'm like, honey, this is just, it's gross and it's unnecessary. And then I got to hear about all the things that the left does that are gross or unnecessary. I'm like, that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about this.
Right.
It's not gentlemanly. It's gross. It's rude. It's inappropriate. It's an attack that's unwarranted. It's a bad look. It's this. I see everything you're saying there. Mm-hmm. And my goal, honestly, is to try to get people to talk and to try to get people to take some responsibility on both sides, right? Like, yep, that's ugly. Why would we attack women that don't have kids? Bad look, not cool. And I would ask, the left to be like, yeah, maybe we didn't need to say F you to the Last Supper during the Olympics. That was kind of...
But see, the left didn't do that.
Oh, we did.
But they didn't. But they actually didn't.
I think we did.
Who?
Kara, I
was it the left got together and said, hey, France, put together a tasteless whatever?
It felt like, for sure, an agenda.
But it's not true. But it wasn't true. See, again.
But who are we to say it's not true?
But
it wasn't. It was
the French. Like, literally, focus on the French if you want to blame anybody. But again, it gets stuck with the left. The left didn't do that.
But
whatever.
we do
They're
kind of bring it into the schools. And it's like, I know they bring religion. Okay, so more of my point. Like, I get they bring...
There's never going to be a blue dress Last Supper in a school. Even in San Francisco, it's not happening. Maybe once, and it was a fucking mistake.
They're telling kids in school, what's your gender today? I mean, you've seen all of this.
What do you care if they do that? Why does that matter? Why? If you don't want to be gay, don't be gay. That's my feeling. If you don't want to be trans, don't be trans.
Parents just want their kids to go and learn math. They want to deal with that stuff at home, and I respect it.
Fine, but it doesn't happen that way. They're trying. What it starts off is for years and years. It was the other way, and you know that was. And when I was growing up, you had to be straight. Are you kidding?
We got somewhere great. Why couldn't we just
Because people.
Why are we constantly like? And another thing, if you get my pronoun wrong, you're canceled.
Yeah, but why can't you just call them that? What is wrong with the ability just to do that? No one gets canceled if you don't get their pronoun. That's ridiculous.
God, you've seen the apology tours. Who's the one that had to apologize because they got Sam Smith's pronoun wrong, and it was a whole apology.
I have gotten pronouns wrong all the time. I do not get canceled. It's ridiculous. You just don't want to say it. That's what it is.
I have no problem
If someone wants to call themselves Phyllis, let them call, to me.
I totally agree with you. And I said that to Tommy Lahren. I was like, hey, listen, why can't you just do that? She's like, well, I don't want to be called cis. I was like, then you shouldn't have to be called cis.
Right.
Goes both ways. I agree with you.
But see, rage, I'll get to the internet stuff. Rage is what fuels all of it. And the attempts to make everyone enragement equals engagement.
Okay, tell me how then to de-escalate. Because
it's designed for rage. What do you think most of Fox News is? They're mad about it. You remember years ago when there used to be
MSNBC is equally.
I agree.
They're coming for us.
It's not quite as good as it because it's not as big. Fox is much better at it, at raging people. And they're bigger because there's two ways to reach people. One is through hope and dreams and aspirations and entrepreneurship. And the other is to make people damn mad about their place in life, or this person did this to me. Years ago, when you're on local news, say you have a local news station, I don't care where it is, it doesn't matter. This is what they always do. A friend of mine wrote they're called teasers or whatever, before, like, next up, killer bees, it could happen to you. Next up, mold in the kitchen. It could happen to you. It's a constant fear. Sure. It's a fear-based enragement scare tactics.
Right.
And that is what happens. Look what they're doing to you now. No one's really doing it to you, right? It's so untrue, but it creates this idea around our society, and it's been fueled by the internet, which is what I have
a million questions for you about that, actually. I wasn't actually going to challenge you on your politics, but
one of the things that I try to do is people are always surprised. I talk to tons of conservatives. Right. I talk to tons. I'm a very capitalistic person. I've created businesses. I don't like government regulation, though I do like some. Like in the case of the internet, there hasn't been any. I think there should be one.
Yes.
Like 2, maybe 3. There's 0. There's more regulation.
This is the Section 230 thing that's
one of them. Yes, giving them broad immunity.
Like blanket immunity? Right.
Broad immunity.
Okay,
not blanket immunity, but broad immunity. And so one of the things that I think is difficult to understand is how you move away from the enragement society, which has been amplified and fueled by the internet. Because you never feel good when you're on those places. It's like being in it's like being in an angry, when you pull the slot machines, a casino. It's not even a fun casino.
It's like Armageddon crack. You just feel like the world is ending all the time.
Right? Yeah. And so that's why I don't go to Twitter anymore, because I don't feel like being called a every day by nameless bots or men who have problems with women. I have no space for it, right, in my life.
Yeah,
and so the way it's designed, it used to be, look at something like this, Google. When you go to Google and you search for your name comes up, right? Usually it's not other things about you. It's usually here you can reach, or here this, or anything else. ADL, whatever. That's a good one. ADL. You'd search for ADL on Google. You get the Anti-Defamation League. You get their webpage. You get information, latest news stories about it. That's how it should be. That's when things are searched for speed, context, and accuracy, right?
Yes.
So same thing with Uber. When you call an Uber, you get an Uber. You don't really engage with Uber. You're not mad at Uber. It's a utility, right? Social media takes that and turns it on its head. And the way it's architected is speed, virality, and engagement. And when you create a system, when you create an architecture like that, just like a building is created in a certain way, what are you going to get when you design for virality, engagement, and speed? What do you imagine you'll get?
Sounds like a
Things
drug.
that anger you. Yes, that's exactly right. Things that anger you, that upset you, that make you feel scared. Not very often that make you feel happy. And so the way it's designed is like a casino where you can't look away. It's addictive. And you also need it for work, by the way. It's not even just that. It's necessary.
Yes.
So it's addictive, necessary,
So true.
and it
It's
plays
been a
into
huge struggle for me
our lizard
professionally
brains.
because
And
of the
therefore, when
work.
someone says something, and some people are good at it, Trump is particularly good at it, says something like nuts and something crazy, whatever he tweets, whatever, like he's done it a million times, and then makes everyone all mad, and then goes, I'm just kidding. The very first act is the most cynical act on the planet because what he's trying to do is get people upset and then abrogate responsibility for what he said. And to me, that is what's happened now. You have all these Twitter jockeys who all they want to do is create chaos. They don't want to build anything. They don't want to offer solutions, that's for sure. And they don't want to fix society. They want to tear it down. And so, good example of the tech bros, including Elon and others, when this guy got killed in San Francisco in a certain part of town, it was down near the water, they were like, it was a homeless person that killed him, right?
Right.
Remember that? It's a homeless person.
I don't remember, but
they did. They went on and
presume
on.
you know what you're talking about
The whole
here.
pack of them went on.
I missed this story.
I'll bet money it was a homeless person who was on fentanyl, whatever it was.
Okay.
I live in San Francisco. That part of town is where the rich people live. First of all, FYI, if you know the town, you're like, there's not a lot of homeless people wandering around. Secondly, feels like a drug deal gone wrong. Feels like possibly a little more complex. I immediately thought, oh, he's part of a group of rich people that likes to take drugs all the time. There must have been a fight. There must have been a beef of some sort. They immediately went and started to attack. It's San Francisco. It turned out to be exactly what I thought
What you were talking about. Okay.
Exactly. But it didn't, they never said, oh, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions without facts. What I said is, I don't know what's happened to here, but I do know that part of town is not a particularly high crime area in any way. And by the way, crime is down in that, especially throughout the city and also there particularly. Instead of like taking a minute, they wanted to enrage and put out their point of view. And to me, that's what's wrong with what's happened here, is that there's no ability to have a discussion about solutions, what happened, and everything else.
Okay, but so then tell me why it's designed like this. Money.
Because they make a lot of money.
Right, okay. But then only a handful of people make a lot of money.
That's correct.
But then that does kind of come back to feeling like, do you remember it was about the racial issues going on in 2020, and a friend of mine who's Black put out a meme. I was like, you've got red ants, you've got black ants, they're in the same environment, they're fine. In a jar. Someone shakes the jar and the ants go to war.
Yes.
My thing is, I think people are shaking this jar. You're
correct.
saying the same.
Yes.
But that is kind of like a very small select group of people.
Yes, they are.
Are fucking with everybody.
That is correct. That's what I'm
Then
saying.
why do you think it's like this dark dystopian conspiracy theory?
No, I don't think it's a dark dystopian. I think they have a dark if you read what they write, if you read what they recommend people write, it is a...
But see, I see this, and I'm saying I see it with big corporate America.
Right.
These super PACs.
Except who are the richest people today?
I see it with the Larry Finks and
But who are
BlackRock.
the actual richest people today?
I would say Larry Fink.
No.
No?
No. You know who the richest people are? Tech people. Look at the top 10 richest people in the world right now, except for the guy who does LVMH, which is just whatever, Gucci bags.
An anomaly, yeah.
He's fine. Like, who cares? He's making things for rich people.
Got it.
Seems fine.
Okay.
It's him, the
Right.
Saudis with their oil, which makes sense,
Got it.
and tech people. The top 10 rich, if you look at it right now, it's all tech people.
Well, is this
the top 10 companies? You can talk all you want about Larry Fink. He's poor compared to these people.
But he manages the third largest GDP in the world.
But it doesn't matter because these people are bigger. Like you're looking at the wrong rich people. I'm
Okay.
just telling you, the people that are really rich are tech people. The companies, the top $5 trillion companies are only tech companies.
So like Zuck, Bezos, Musk.
It's Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA now because of this AI stuff. Facebook is up there. It's just Google, obviously, Alphabet. It's all tech people. So here we are yelling about these people when actually the rich people are here and they are coalescing power. And now with AI, coalescing power with AI now.
Right. Okay.
I'm just saying you're looking at the wrong rich people.
No. Maybe, yes. When I look at some of the wars going on, it brings me back to kind of the Halliburton weapons of mass destruction that didn't
Who's
exist.
a big defense contractor right now?
Boeing, right?
SpaceX. Starlink. Who do you think owns Starlink and SpaceX? Elon. Like, I'm just saying, be a little more pay attention.
Okay, I am paying attention, but here would be my question to you then. Okay, so then my question becomes, Trump says he's going to end that situation with Ukraine and Russia.
Sure. Because he's a useful idiot of Putin, but okay.
Okay, but
he
Larry
is.
Fink has the contract to rebuild Ukraine. It's worth $15 billion, and then the resources, I would imagine it's a 35x on that. So
he isn't the only person who has a contract, but go ahead.
I mean, you can Google it.
Among the many.
He's the guy.
But this is it happened after World War II. It happened after the Korean War. This is not a new, fresh thing that big companies go in there and everything breaks and then they rebuild it.
I know, but if you look at Halliburton and Iraq, right?
Yes.
Can we get
100%?
So the question is that happening here? I have no idea. But Trump says he wants to end that. So then the cash cow that would be that situation for the military-industrial complex would go away. So why would Elon want Trump to be president if he would shut that down?
Well, that's a whole nother thing. The reason he wants that to happen is because he's
government subsidies.
He's gotten lots of government subsidies.
Okay.
Elon has gotten a lot of them. Just so you know, Tesla was saved by a government loan by the Obama administration. It was about to go out of business.
Okay.
He has tons of Defense Department stuff. He's essentially going to create the moon base for the United States that they're building.
Right.
So I just feel like, they can say, look over here at these people when they're doing the exact same thing, whether it's Palantir, whether it's Anduril. They're all...
No, what's Palantir and Anduril?
Military? This is run by military stuff, run by tech people. Tech people are trying to move into military at a brisk pace right now.
Why?
Because that's where the money is. Why do they rob banks? It's where the money is.
But if the money is in warring, right, how does that stop? Because
it doesn't. It doesn't.
We're this close to potentially a nuclear war, it seems to me.
Yes, that's correct.
We've now got Putin working with Kim Jong-un into the hands of China.
Again, neither of us are experts on this.
No, we're not. I'm not. I can speak for myself. But so I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm afraid of that. And then you look at, and I know you're going to rip me apart and you have every right to because I don't understand it. But then you look at the Biden administration and you go, okay, hold on. We pushed the up button on this situation. Didn't we have an agreement at the Minsk Accords where Zelensky and Putin kind of said like, hey, let's just don't pledge to NATO. Let's keep it rolling. And we told them.
Let's go back into history. What if America First had won the fight to take over Charles Lindbergh, very influential guy, Henry Ford, well-known anti-Semite, was very anti-war, et cetera, et cetera. What if they had won and we hadn't engaged if we had decided Hitler was someone we could deal with? Just think.
But I'm talking about this specific incident. And Putin wasn't invading Ukraine.
But he was.
No, he did in 2014 after there was a coup and they decided they were going to pledge to NATO and he said, don't do it. And to me, it's like, well, but they want to join NATO. And listen, in the world of lesser evils, a nuclear war.
But there isn't a nuclear war. It's not going to happen.
Do you think it's not going to happen?
No, I don't think it's going to happen. Here's what I think.
We're this close.
Russia and China are out to get us, and we need to be on Team America. That's my feeling. Anyone who is doing things that are not for democracy, I'm sorry to tell you, we might have to punch them in the face and use weapons to do so. Whether
China I can't speak about, but I think the situation with Russia could have been diffused.
By acquiescing to their aggressive, nationalistic,
That's not what I've taken
anti-gay.
away from it, though.
You know what's happening in Russia to gay people, jailed.
I don't, but my concern of a nuclear war is a bit higher than that on the spectrum.
But that is not going to happen. What they do is they try to make you...
hearing that from people that are experts in this field.
They're not. That is not true. They're not going to kill themselves to do so. What he wants to expand. If you read what Putin is saying, he wants to expand old Mother Russia.
I think that the wrong people have provoked this situation for very lucrative reasons to themselves.
There's not a moment I feel badly about punching Vladimir Putin in the nose. There's not one moment of it that I feel bad about.
When we have nuclear weapons,
but he's not going to do it. It's not
I
true.
hope you're right.
It's not true.
And you very well, God willing, are. But I don't like dancing this close to the edge. edge at
They
all.
were jailed for being gay in Russia. You want that world? You want the world of China?
But why then are you taking on Putin? There's a million places that
Who
will
else?
stone me to death for
That's
being
correct.
gay.
But guess what? They're a nuclear power, so we have to push back on all autocracies across.
We're
And by
pushing
the way,
back on one.
FYI, we should be pushing back on Venezuela right now. That's a left-wing autocracy. All autocracies need to be pushed back on, even if democracy can be broken. There's all kinds of corruption.
But they're not
It
a
is
nuclear
literally
power.
that's correct. But
Why are we pushing back on North Korea?
We should push back on North Korea
We haven't.
because he's crazy. Because
No, Putin's crazy. It's the same thing.
no, Putin's not crazy. He is not, unfortunately, he's an autocrat and he is not crazy. He would like to expand Russia across the globe and cause us the involvement of
He
Russia.
has
Let's
not
get back to
done
internet,
that.
which is,
all
oh
right,
my
yeah,
God.
all right, okay, you're right.
Oh my God.
right,
What they're doing in this country over with misinformation, disinformation, all kinds of activities, and we've given them the landscape to do it. We invented the internet and it's being used against
us. Okay.
All these things that are happening is because they want to create discord in this country. Because you know why? We're a democracy and we argue with each other.
I understand.
You can't argue with each other in Russia. You can't.
I know this. I understand this. I get it. And I know there's evil in the world. I just think we should quiet it down. I think diplomats should engage in dialogue with people they don't like. But I hear you, and in fact, could you? I had a lot of notes on things you've said. Facebook is a threat to democracy.
Yes.
You're off of Twitter. You know,
I'm still on Twitter because I was there first, by the way. I joined in 2007. That's correct.
Right.
I just don't like, it's not from, speaking of health, it's not healthy to be yelled at by bots all day.
I understand. Talk to me about the bots, because I do know they're there.
Okay, years ago, let me give you
Who's doing that? Is that Russia? Like, what are the
Could be. Unfortunately, it's hard to trace. Here's what happened in a really good example.
Teach me.
All right. Do you remember when Roseanne Barr said that terrible thing about Valerie Jarrett?
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yes, I
She
do.
called her a monkey. I think
Yes,
that's
I remember.
something like that.
Yes.
So everyone got all mad. It's a terrible thing to say about someone, especially an African-American person,
Yes.
right? It's worthwhile telling her she's an idiot. It's fine. So she says it. And a couple weeks later, Sam B called Ivanka Trump. Do you remember that? Remember?
No.
It was the same time period.
Okay.
So I was talking about companies that track bots and the creation of anger online. This is one of the key parts of creating discord is creating anger and uncertainty, right? So this is what they do. So when Roseanne Barr does that, normal people are like, what an asshole, and said that online. But most of the activity were bots saying it, fake people saying, same company, Roseanne Barr is an idiot. Roseanne Barr should be able to say what she wants. Fighting with the same company was creating bots on both sides of the issue. It generated all kinds of anger.
Is the company owned by the social media network?
No, they're just different companies that get hired by whoever it happens to be to create. Like Iran is constant.
So you're right. So it could be Iran. It could be Russia.
You could be.
And to create
Iran,
discord societally here in America.
But they're on different sides of the same of an issue, just
to
create
bot.
The same companies.
Dissension.
Create dissension because dissension works in this country, getting people mad at each other.
Got it.
We have more in common than we have apart, but they try to show our differences, to try to illuminate our differences so that we're all mad at each other. And so this group was saying, Roseanne Barr's an idiot. This group was saying Roseanne Barr. It was the same group of people doing it. Then people, like a track accident, get attracted to that. And then real people come in, and then it becomes a real issue. When mostly it's like, what an asshole Roseanne Barr is. I wish she would shut up, right? Comes, goes. Same thing happened when Sam did this. So Sam did it. She apologized. She shouldn't have said it. It's not a very nice thing to say about ladies, even if she happens to be a jerk, even if you don't like her. Not the nicest thing to say. Same thing happened. Bots on either of the same company. Sam should say what she wants. Sam's a terrible person. Fight.
Right.
I'm saying they're trying to create and amplify our differences.
And that's the threat to democracy.
Meanwhile,
the platform
that's
that
correct.
facilitates
But
it.
the platforms don't do anything about it. They don't care about safety.
And TikTok, the same, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
They're all, I mean, I think 5 years ago, I wrote a column saying TikTok's the best new product I've ever seen in social media. And I use it on a burner phone because the Chinese Communist Party is probably trying to upset and
that's real.
disturb. Of course it is, but so are our companies doing it. But they're doing it to make money. The Facebooks of the world and the Twitters of the world. Well, Twitter's not making any money, but they're doing it they don't care that it creates discord. They don't care because the business plan is to create activity and engagement and movement and people staying on their platform.
Right.
And this is an industry that has no regulation whatsoever. And I'm not very regulation oriented, but when the Alaska Airlines thing happened, the door comes off, worrisome, right?
Yes.
Correct. I'm worried about it. You're worried about it.
Very.
Comes off. What happens? Lawsuits. State and federal laws come after Alaska Airlines. The CEO is fired. Lawsuits, investigations. One door off of a thing. They'll fix that. They'll figure out how to do the bolts. They'll fine Lockheed, whoever was involved, or Boeing, whatever. I think is it Boeing or Lockheed? Whatever. They will get Boeing. They get in trouble for this, right? They pay the price for not putting those bolts on, right? You do something and you get liable, you go to court.
100%.
That's correct.
Yep.
If a tech company does something, it doesn't matter. They could walk, like as Donald Trump said, they could walk down Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and they're not liable. And I'm using that in a metaphorical sense.
I understand, of course.
They can ruin the self-esteem of girls. They can create, they can let foreign powers run rampant over our platforms.
Sell fentanyl on Snapchat.
That's correct.
Right.
They can do whatever it happens to be. They never get, there's no privacy bills. They can take your information and do whatever they want with it. You're not protected. How is it that our most powerful industry is completely unregulated and allowed to do what they want?
This is where I go back to my conspiracy theory that they're paying.
But it's not a conspiracy. It's right out in like this is where
I think they're doing that.
Right, but here's the deal: they are the bad guys. So sometimes
that is
government,
my nefarious
they're not
blood,
the bad guys. They're just capitalists. The first line of my book is capitalism when it's to its extreme does this. All they want to do is make money.
Okay.
So that's where government should become involved. Listen,
but they're for sale.
That's correct. Because they're very cheap. But
no. I'm saying because of Citizens United. Okay, perfect example. So Elon Musk, you and I are what? We're allowed to donate $3,300 to our favorite candidate. He's allowed to give $45 million a month.
He didn't quite, but go ahead.
Well, but you see my point.
Yes,
it's not just
they
him.
bought
the
JD
Koch
Vance.
brothers.
They bought JD Vance.
Bingo.
They did.
Exactly.
Right.
So
politicians are cheap whores, just so you know.
It's they're up for auction.
Yes.
So what do we then do?
One, perhaps we might want to tax the rich a little more than we do, which we don't. We do not. I don't care. I argue with Mark Cuban about this all the time. We certainly don't tax the rich. We don't tax
Trump
corporations.
even said that. You can agree with him on that. He's like, you don't, and you made these laws, and I use them.
Well, that's a cynical, horrible way. If you want to be the leader of everybody.
No, but
you really don't want
admitting it.
I'm
simply telling you that
great.
He is
so the
admitting
grifter
it.
tells us he's a grifter. That's great. Good for us. Yay, America.
Okay, stay with me here. I shouldn't have brought that up.
So it just is like, that's not who I want. That's not who I want my kids to look
I understand. I'm simply saying at least he's being transparent about it. He's not lying about it.
Okay.
Or you're saying I argue with Mark Cuban about it. I would rather somebody tell me the truth about
Mark
something.
Will argue about it very fulsomely. He will talk to you about it. One of the things that we have to start doing is that these companies there's not a privacy bill. There's not an antitrust bill. They haven't reformed antitrust in 100 years. Like, things have changed, right? Should these companies be able to buy up everything? Should they be able to control? All of AI is controlled by 4 companies now, same 4 companies, right? Microsoft. Should that happen? Should there be more? To me, innovation comes from small companies bubbling up and killing the bigger companies. That's a really healthy ecosystem.
But then they get purchased. Just like social media is owned by a handful of guys.
That's right. There's never going to be, like, one of the things I always talk about, they're like, oh, innovation is great. I'm like, is there ever going to be another search engine but Google? No, because you can't. There's no business in it. Is there ever going to be another social media site? Maybe TikTok comes in, but oh no, the Chinese government is involved. Not technically, but yes, they are. Obviously, they'll be there.
I'm sorry. When you say not technically, I actually don't understand that.
It's owned by, a lot of investors in TikTok are Americans.
Then what is the China? I've heard like, oh no, the servers aren't in China.
They
what are you
aren't,
talking
but there's
about?
an ability of the government to. You're not going to know what you don't know. One of the things is it being
so it's a concern.
It's a concern for me.
Got it.
I don't.
But you're just as concerned about the American companies having all of our stuff
They have
too.
different motivations. I don't question their patriotism. I question that everything they do is for shareholders and not for the society. And when they cause damage, they don't have to pay for the damage they do.
Right.
A pharmaceutical company, as much as you don't like them, when they cause poison, they get sued. They get
Purdue,
they've gotten
yeah,
some-
but
they've gotten
Purdue
some-
got that. I mean, if you look at the, but yes, you're right. At
they
least there's
tried.
something.
There's
You're
something
correct.
you
At
can
least
go up.
there's something.
You can't sue a tech company. You can't sue. You can't bring them to court. There was a moment when Mark Zuckerberg was recently in front of Congress. He's been up there a lot. They're so imbecilic in dealing with them. He gets up there, and I'm pretty sure it was Josh Hawley. Or Tom Cotton, one of them. They look the same to me. Like a young neo-Nazi look, that modified neo-Nazi look. They said, turn around. There's families there holding up pictures of their kids who had gotten hurt online, bullied online, all kinds of stuff, gotten drugs online, etc. So the parents, it was very moving, had pictures of their kids. And he said, turn around and apologize to those kids, to those parents, right? Right?
Yeah.
One, I said to myself, gosh, I wonder who in this room could create legislation to prevent that. Who? Why don't you fucking apologize to these people, Congress people, including you, Josh fucking Hawley? Fuck you. Like, how dare you tell someone else to apologize when you have it within your power to do something about it, right? Again, who did we elect to do something about it? And they don't do anything because they're bought and paid for. Mark turned around and said, I'm so sorry for what was done to you. Not, I'm so sorry for what I did that caused this to happen.
Right.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry if you feel that way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And you know
I know
that.
the whole bifurcating into
So it was really interesting. And I thought, of all the people in this room, I really dislike the legislators because they actually can do something about it. Mark is doing his job, which is being a capitalist.
And protecting Facebook.
Protecting Facebook. So why do we want these people, including whether it's Elon Musk or Satya Nadella, and I like Satya Nadella, why are these people in charge of our, even if you don't.
How do you fight back? Because listen, hold on. I want to come back to you say burn book, right? It's got love story in the title.
Yes, it does.
So as you and I sit here, a text scares me. I don't understand it. It overwhelms the shit out of me.
I use it every day. Does electricity scare you?
It's put it this way. I don't understand the algorithms. I don't understand the stuff you're talking about. I don't understand AI. It's very overwhelming to a layman.
Like power. You just have to look at it. It's the current version of power, the way newspapers used to be or broadcast networks. It's power. That's all.
Why do you then say a love story?
Because what tech can
What's
do.
the love part?
Here's the part. It could be the metaphor I use, which I think will be easy for you to understand, was Star Trek versus Star Wars. Right? You've watched both of course, right? Star Trek has a very benevolent view of tech where it goes around discovery, finding things, creating, penicillin. Like that's technology, right? That's,
of course.
And one of the things.
Biotech.
Right, exactly. Like technology could help save humanity in so many ways. I believe in going into space. We can't be a single planet civilization. That's a risk. That's a big risk. So technology can do all amazing things. And so I have a Star Trek vision, which is it goes out, it discovers, it finds, it creates, there's villains, but we convince them otherwise. We convince them of a united commonality. That's what Star Trek's about. It's about commonality, right? It's about what we have in common. Star Wars is about evil. Evil prevails. Evil wins. Evil is smart. And even at the end of the last cycle, nobody ended up great, right?
You're fighting for a vision.
Right, that's right. But evil wins a lot. Like it's not so, heroes don't always prevail. And so I have a Star Trek vision of the universe where climate change tech, all kinds of stuff that tech could do to help us mitigate the very dangerous situation we have as we're moving into. Anyone who's here in California or anywhere else across the country, we have to figure out how we're going to live with the environment we have changed and has been changing, like both, right? So tech could be help us do that. Food production, better, fresher food. Like one of the things they're thinking about doing in San Francisco to try to revitalize downtown is to take some of these buildings nobody's going to go into at the office anymore and make them into urban farms.
Right.
That's interesting. It's going to take a lot of tech. Then it brings food closer to people so they have more nutrition. How can we design not food just to mess up, like Monsanto, but how can we bring food, how can we do food production in a cleaner, smarter way? How can we do clothing production? How can we recycle? And I mean this not in the typical recycling way, is how can we create just-in-time manufacturing? We can do this through AI, drug discovery, cancer research, figuring out, and I know you're not pro-Ozempic, but let's study it because the diabetic industrial complex.
I know a lot about it.
No, I get it.
But
but
ton.
But here's
to clarify my position on this, I think this is an artificially created problem by big food.
That's correct. I call it the diabetic industrial complex.
I call it the obesity industrial complex.
Right.
And I think that this jab is not a permanent solution. So if somebody was a life or death intervention, I've gotten to the place where I'm like, listen, if we've got nothing to lose, I'll roll the dice on it. But I would say the majority of the cases, especially in children, that's not the case.
Removing it, but we aren't going to remove those people. That's the thing. So what can we do? It's just like taking statins. If you
We can do some of the things you're talking about.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. So the love story is there's so much possibility in tech. And when I started it, I thought, wow, if we could really just talk to each other, we could find our commonalities. What did it degenerate into?
Yeah, warring,
fighting, because of
divisiveness.
the way they have designed the casino. Why are we living in a fucking casino? It doesn't have to. And the quote in the book that's most important is, there's a Paul Virilio, who's a French philosopher, and he said, when you invent the ship, you invent the shipwreck. When you invent electricity, you invent the electric chair. When you invent the plane, you invent the plane crash. Every single technology has a downside. My question for these people is that, oh my God, we have ships. We go all over the world. We have a better life if we do that. If we have a car, it's better. What can we do to mitigate the downsides? When we invent the ship, why don't we have a lighthouse? That's my thing. Like, what is the problem?
How do we get? Okay,
that's correct.
So here's my question.
So my love part is,
tell
I love
us
the ship.
How
I hate
do we
the ship.
fight back? Because you can say vote them out, but I'll give you an example. Again, I hate to bring up Trump because I don't want to take you down this rabbit hole, but my point is he was I know you're going to say he's anti-TikTok for some other reason, but
he was pro-TikTok. You do know that.
Now he is, because they gave him money.
Now he is. That's right. That's correct. He was anti-TikTok. He was correct on that.
You go, okay, so you got a guy.
But for the wrong reasons. He's always correct. He was.
Okay, but my point is anyone's up for sale.
No, what he did is
anyone's up for sale.
No, but he had an opportunity.
Even a billionaire was up for sale.
Here's my problem. He had an opportunity to fix it, and instead of doing it the smart way, he did it in the stupid way. So we missed our shot on that country. We needed to stop them early, and we didn't, because he had to be so stupid in how he dealt with that. He did this executive order that made no sense, that was all about him aggrandizing himself. And so even if
I don't know the executive order, so I can't.
He was directionally correct.
Understand it, but
operationally wrong. And so if you're operationally wrong, it doesn't matter.
But then he reversed course because they gave him money.
Because they gave him money.
And that's the only point I'm making, is that I sit here and
he wants votes of young people, and he thinks it'll.
And the Bitcoin vote and all of that. I get it. I see it all. So I see all the problems, and I see this handful of puppet masters, and we're the ants in the jar. They shake the jar because it's financially profitable. How do we fight back?
You organize, you vote. I mean, ultimately, it is up to how you use these things. Now, they're addictive, but how you use them. And I don't want to put all the on parents or whoever, because I think parents themselves are addicted to this stuff. That's the problem. Not just kids, parents are addicted, and you do need them for work. And so to me, like, I was talking to Anne Applebaum today about her book, Autocracy, Inc. Poland turned itself around. Poland had an autocrat for years, and then they just organized people that didn't agree with each other, the center right, the center left, the maybe far off, maybe not reasonable right, the reasonable left. They don't agree with each other. They got together and said, we need to fight the autocracy, so we need to find fucking ways to get along on things we agree on. And that's what has to happen in this country. Voters have to get out the vote. They have to get excited. They have to feel good. I myself, and Scott on our Pivot podcast, talk a lot about the gerontocracy. We were pushing for Biden to step down, but Trump's too friggin' old. He's old as the hills, like, compared to, there's a new generation of Republicans and Democrats. We do have a two-party system. I don't love it, but it's what we have. There's exciting personalities on both sides that are really good.
I see that.
So why do we have to deal with one guy who has a cult of 30%? And, well, the Democrats actually did do something about it. They got rid of Biden. They did it. Like, it's incredible. Why can't the Republicans do the same and reinvigorate that party so that they are accountable to the people? right? They're accountable to voters. And then voters have got to get off their fucking phones and get out there, and issues like whether it's trans athletes, whether it's this, get out there. And instead of going at people, talk about what we have in common. What do we want for our kids? We want them to be better in math. We want them to be safer in the streets. We want them to have better food. They want to do stuff. There's so much commonality that the internet could bring together, and you're kind of seeing it a little bit.
You are?
I'll tell you, it's really interesting.
I'm
and
trying,
it surprised
but-
me. It surprised me in this. There was a real little civil war going on in the Democratic Party over whether Biden should quit or not. I took the part that he should quit. And Scott and I got attacked like you can't believe by the left. Like, they're like, how dare you? I was like, sorry, but even if we lose, we can't have this. This guy is not able.
Had that fight with Bill.
Right?
I said, Bill, he's got dementia.
Like, well,
And
I
Bill's
don't know.
like,
I'm not a doctor. I don't know.
I work a lot in health. I've interviewed
He's
some of the
so
top,
strong.
but
They're-
like, this is what I do. I mean,
They're
the guy
both
has
too old. Let's
he
just
has
say
dementia.
they're both too old, and they both have cognitive problems. No matter how you slice it, when you get past, Scott and I were pushing for term limits. Term limits based on age. Like, we do it at the beginning of our. I both of us think that we should have the ability of young people to use digital things. No, not until they're 16, right? Not until, like, we age gate everything else. Why don't we age gate on the other side? You're 75.
If I was to play devil's
you get-
advocate, I would ask for a cognitive test on that because
No.
the ageism is
Yeah,
is
but it
tough.
doesn't
I don't
matter.
wanna-
It doesn't matter. Just say it doesn't matter. It doesn't
That's
matter.
not fair.
Why not? Why
Because
not?
because I've met
Why not make-
93-year-olds that are sharp as
That's
a tack
great.
because
They
they've
should do
taken-
something else. They
But
should
what
do
if
something
they've
else.
taken incredible care of themselves and they were absolutely brilliant?
We age gate everywhere else. I don't know why we shouldn't.
I can't get with you on that. I would ask for a
Well,
cognitive
why not
test.
have the Supreme Court be 16 years? That's it. Not for life.
I agree.
Why not?
I agree,
Why
but I
not
just
do
wouldn't.
it?
I wouldn't make it about age.
But it is about age. Federal prosecutors, boards of directors, federal judges, they all have age limits. They do, except for the Supreme Court. The only thing that doesn't have it is the
Does
Supreme
it
Court and the
really?
presidency.
I
Why
did not know that.
Why not? Just say it. Say, look, when you turn, 80, make it 80 if you feel like it. But
I
just-
would say, but what if you're 70 and you have dementia? This is why I would
Well,
go
sure,
for
but
something
that's-
that's.
Yes, but then no one's going to agree on that. So make it fair. Make
Really?
it yes.
I think they would agree on that, but we
I
don't
don't
need
think
to go.
they don't agree. You have Republicans going, there's nothing wrong with Trump. I'm like, I don't know. Have you watched him a couple times? He's like, Biden just was a more pronounced version of where Trump is headed. You understand where it's going. By the way, Trump has a family history of Alzheimer's, like a very deep family history of Alzheimer's.
Trump alarms me for other reasons
Yes,
outside
but
of that.
Cognitively always gets me the most
I
in
understand,
positions
but
of
I
power.
couldn't compare. I feel it would be. I don't see when I look at
Again,
Biden. He's
neither of us-
extremely pronounced. Trump seems very sharp to me. I know.
See,
I
here's
know.
how I look at it. You
I
ever been to an
understand.
old folks home? My mom's in one. There's a guy in the cafeteria who walks with a walker and goes pretty slow and forgets things. There's that guy, and he's very nice, and he just wanders around, and sometimes he gets lost, sometimes he doesn't. Then there's the guy in the cafeteria who seems vibrant and screams, "Whose toe is pudding?" That's Trump to me. This whose toe is pudding guy, who seems vibrant but is crazy. Like, that's the situation we have going there. In any case, why are both of them running for president? There's Mike Gallagher on. I could name
Whose
10
toe is pudding?
Republicans
That's awesome.
who would be great presidents. And
I
I wouldn't
agree.
vote for them, but they'd be. I would not feel
You wouldn't
terrible.
feel afraid.
Mike Gallagher, perfect person.
I
He
remember John
quit
Kasich was a very reasonable
John
guy.
Kasich. There's all
Yeah,
kinds of people.
I know.
I'm just saying that's where we
I
what
I
happens,
liked Nikki Haley.
and let me get
The war- don't
whatever
like her?
day it happened of the week. If she would stick with one thing, I would like her, but she can't. She's so ambitious. It's really kind of embarrassing.
I was a little concerned about the war stuff with her, and again, I don't
She does like a war.
know a ton about it, but
I told that to Hillary Clinton once. I go, "You love an epaulet," and she's like, "I don't love an epaulet." I'm like, "You love a military figure."
kinda that stuff alarms me, but
Women have to be tougher when they're running for office. They do. They have to seem tougher, like they're not a pushover. I think that's where it comes from.
But I think when you're the underdog, you do have to be better, and nobody wants to hear that.
All right, let me get back to what we can do. So we should
Yeah.
organize on a thing. One of the things that I actually am enjoying in this little, I call it Camelot. Everyone's really happy with the coconut thing and everything else. It's fun. It's cute. There is a really nice feeling to it online. This is how I like online. Like, You may
I like cat videos on.
All right, but you may like or dislike Kamala, but the social media around her is joyful, right? It's fun. It is. It really is. Watch it. It's fun.
I don't. It doesn't get served to me.
They make a coconut thing. They're fun. It's fun. It's really. It's the way social media should work. Is it's very funny. There's little memes that the right tried to make fun of her over the coconut thing, and all influencers on TikTok and Instagram are now making it fun, and you like her for it. I'm saying there's ways to do it that
aren't
fun.
cantankerous.
They're not
and divisive.
They're not like dark and dystopian, or this person sucks, or let's get trans people, let's get this person. It appeals to our common interests. Who doesn't like a lady dancing, right? Versus what separates us. And I think the problem with social media, the way it's run now, or not just social media, but tech, is that it appeals to our differences versus our commonalities. And it could do both things. And that's why it's a love story. And what's happened is we've let these people who are, one, interested in shareholders, no, that's their only interest.
Right.
And two, some of them they have, they're children. They act like toddlers. They act like children. And why are they running our world? Why exactly are they in charge of AI, which is going to change everything? People who are making decisions aren't accountable to anyone, whether it's Elon or Mark Zuckerberg. There's lack of accountability. We can't sue them. We can't kick them out. They run their companies like monarchies.
Yes.
And they have a stock, the way their stocks are done is they can't be fired. Can you imagine someone who can't be fired? I think being fired is a really important thing.
Right, it holds you accountable.
Right, but there's no accountability for any of them, so they can do whatever they want.
Right.
In the case of Elon, he has national security credentials. I really want him to have national security? Why is nobody investigating? That's why he's backing Trump, because he's worried under a Democratic administration is that they will get rid of his national security credentials. And they may have a good case for it. We'll see. But it will be investigated, that's for sure, and he doesn't want that to happen. He also there's issues around Tesla and fraud that SEC's been investigating. He doesn't want that to happen. It's always go to the money with these people. Always go to what's in their financial self-interest to do. And all their noise about whatever Elon's yelling about, I mean, he's a little crazy, but it's always about his financial self-interest, no matter what he does.
Right. I understand.
Yeah.
Tell me, looking at this landscape, I just have a few pointed questions.
Okay.
Universal basic income. AI is taking all of our jobs away.
They're not. It's not taking.
Really?
No. Some of our jobs. Some of them should be.
You want to
taken
jump
away.
into this one? My business partner's having a meltdown about this.
Well, AI will change a lot of stuff, the way things are. Just
you think
the way
everyone's losing their job?
Not everybody.
How do you not become dystopian about it?
Because we've been through it before. We've been through the manufacturing, when manufacturing changed. We don't do farming the way, farming is done by a very small group of people. It used to be.
Prepare for it, though.
Well, that's the issue.
Like the editors are going to lose their jobs. The copywriters are going to lose their jobs.
They need less of them. They'll need less of them. Because a lot of jobs we're doing are digitally wrote, and we shouldn't be doing them. Like, so what is the thing we're going to do? Again, it's happened before. It's been very disruptive when we went from farming to manufacturing. That was in massive. Are you kidding? There was social unrest.
That was over 100 years, wasn't it? This is in 5 seconds.
No, it was faster than you think.
The Industrial Revolution we're talking about?
Yes, 100%.
I thought that was like decades.
No. Every industry becomes mechanized and digitized. And one of the things of my book that was very important, and I said at the very beginning, is that everything, and I said this back in the 90s, I said everything that can be digitized will be digitized. And it will be. It makes perfect sense. There's no reason why, you could pick any job, why radiologists have to look at all when AI can do it. Like, why would you have a person do it when a computer does it better? Why would you have when a computer can write a letter better, why would you have a person do it? It doesn't make any sense to do those jobs.
True.
They're going to be replaced no matter we don't butter churn anymore.
New job market,
so that's
new skill set.
That's where we have to get together with industry, government, and figure out what
the jobs
are. Creativity.
Well, go do that.
Creativity is one thing that can't be replaced easily.
Okay.
Creativity. The idea of, so if you're a lawyer and AI is going to take over a lot of analysis, because a person can't in their head know all the cases, but AI can.
Right.
Very quickly. Okay, what is the role of a lawyer then? Maybe more advice giving, more thoughtful, more things. Same thing with doctors. Instead of doctors figuring out the diagnosis, let AI figure it out, and then doctors will take that under advisement and figure it out. So it takes weight off of people on things that are taking brain cells that they're not very good at anyway. Same thing with cancer research. We can't do it with our small human brains.
I've heard incredible things
Incredible
about
things
that.
are going on
Digital
about that.
twins and all this
all kinds
amazing
of
stuff. Because health, I've heard about
Yeah,
that
so
piece.
I mean, and lots of things like climate change stuff, all kinds of stuff. So what are the new jobs? And what, like, by the way, plumbers, electricians, that doesn't get replaced. Why don't we train more people in crafts?
Okay.
Why does everyone go to college?
I think about hard goods often. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, if somebody becomes your trainer that's a robot, we have hard goods that we sell. And we invest in
not
companies.
every trainer is going to be. Sometimes you're going to want a person. You're not going to necessarily want a robot to do that. Those companies didn't do very well. Tonal and the others didn't. Did they do very well?
You know what? That they were expensive. The barrier to entry was very high with things like
but
Tonal.
I think ultimately some of it will be replaced, some it won't. But the expertise of humans, cooking is another thing. You really can't. I mean, they will. By the way, I just did an interesting interview with a guy who started Chipotle. He has a new thing where he's created a kitchen where a robot cooks the vegetables. Now, humans don't do it very well, and they do it inefficiently. It takes too many people there. But then humans can do other things like greet people in the front. And would you like to try this? Like, we have to be creative instead of scared of it. Secondly,
okay, that's a great answer.
Secondly,
actually.
is that what I'm more worried about is the amount of creativity they are stealing from people, like my copyright and things like that.
I was going to ask you about that.
Because they're
another
shoplifters.
piece
They're shoplifters.
is that I don't understand the scraping of the web. So
It's shoplifting.
that is what I'm.
It's thief.
It's
thievery. It's thief.
Yeah, plagiarism, correct?
Nope. It's stealing. Let's go right to steal.
And along with that, if you're stealing stuff, you're taking someone's unique content. That will have an inherent bias one way or the other because it's not just purely fact-based.
Well, it depends
correct?
on the information that's coming in. There's an expression in tech called garbage in, garbage out. If it's medical information, it'll have all of it, and it will. So my brother's an anesthesiologist. He was.
It's a tough job.
Yeah, it is a tough job. A lot of decision making.
Yeah.
So when he had a very difficult case, he'd go to 3 different anesthesiologists and get opinions. Now he puts it into AI, and he gets 50 different possibilities of how to handle his case.
Okay.
By the way, those 3 anesthesiologists, 2 were wrong. 1 was right, gave him a good idea. Now he has 50 ideas. Now look, he doesn't have to take any of those ideas, but at least he gets 50. He goes, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Like then
So you have to use your brain.
Yes, that's correct.
You've got to have some self-agency. You can't just defer the machine. You need to do your homework.
Some things you will defer to the machine. But like a good thing, there's a great book. He just died. The guy who Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow. He created another book after that about decision making, and he was talking about when you put it in the justice system, because many people who are arrested are black, and there's racial bias and some of the things. The AI would say, oh, black people are criminals. Like, you know what I mean? Just because of the data, right? So, but that's not true, right? It's just they get arrested more, and that's very different. And so one of the things he was saying is that sometimes AI justice system may not be the place we apply it, right? That said, if a judge has a bad day on the way to the office, his judgment is impaired. If his wife yelled at him and he comes to court, or he makes a mistake.
Yeah, or maybe he was robbed by a black guy once and he has it.
On a very normal thing, they showed 10 different insurance outcomes by 10 different people who were doing the insurance decision making of whether you should get paid out for an accident. 10 different decisions from 10 different people. The AI got the answer right every time. So in some cases, there's a limited bias by AI. Sometimes we should have the combination of AI and people is what you really want to get to, right? The idea that it helps us come to a decision. We know the provenance of the information of where it came from, the cleanliness, like food.
It's essentially a partnership.
That's right.
You're telling us exactly what we need to do is apply a different lens to the way we approach all of this and not come from fear, which is what we're doing.
Right.
When that seems to be our theme.
As we should. By the way, it's a good beginning thing is to worry about it because it's run by a couple of people, right?
Yeah.
So I always worry about that. But what I really like to think about is what can we do with this knowledge to make it like there. I always have this vision of there is a little girl in, I don't know, Syria who has the cure for cancer in her head. She never gets to get there. We never access the talent that's in the brains of people across the globe. Maybe this is a way to access talent or get people information so they're better educated. And again, getting back to democracies, even if they're messy, tend to bring out, there's a reason why tech companies were founded in the US of A and not Russia and not China.
Right.
Because we have an ability to be messy and a disaster, and at the same time, innovation bubbles up from the bottom where people aren't restricted. And so this gives us an opportunity to take a lot of shortcuts of stuff that we were doing that was waste of our time and move to the better things. That's the hope. My fear is that it becomes an even more of an attention sponge where everybody's glued to their phones or their things or everything else, where all the answers are provided to you versus you using it for the Star Trek version.
Collaborating,
discovery, figuring out what we're going to do. How are we going to solve cancer? I believe cancer will be solved in our lifetime because of AI,
I agree with you.
Right?
Yes,
we will.
I agree.
It's a math problem. I mean, it sounds dumb. Everything is a math problem in life. And so when you have a better thing doing it, avail yourself. And I think, unfortunately, we've done is we become addicted to these devices as they're sort of like the Star Trek communicator, but instead of using it as a tool, we use it as a babysitter, or we use it as an addiction machine, or we're bored and we can't be bored for a second.
Right.
Great innovation comes from boredom, by the way, when you're sitting around thinking. But for a minute, you're not allowed to think, right? And so I think one of the things that we have to sort of pay attention to is how do we not shift young people's brains into this constant, always, it's like continuous partial attention is what we're in a state of almost constantly. Now, my premise is that the people who are the real problems are people 30 to 50. Now, young people, I don't know how old your kids are, but
12 and 14.
I have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 22-year-old. And
oh my God.
so I know I'm a straight. I know I'm a straight white man. So I am. I got remarried. So it's exactly what's happening here. I had one of them, of those 4. I actually bore one of them.
I'm sorry.
Physically, it's true. Right?
Continue.
I'm concerned.
Okay.
So I think about them a lot. I think my sons are super smart about digital. I think they're like the way we grew up in I don't know how old you are, but remember TV
50.
was the boob tube? And
Yes.
we're going to be done. Were you dumb because of the TV? No.
No.
Same thing with video games. They're going to make us all violent. They didn't. A lot of the studies showed they didn't. They actually reduced aggression because people
Really?
Yes, a lot of the
Did
studies.
not
Remember
know
Tipper
that.
Gore was like, it's going to,
Of course.
the music is going to make us go crazy.
I do kind
Remember?
of hate how gross the music is.
I know, but it doesn't make us crazy.
It does.
Doesn't
I
Mom
don't
stop.
like the way.
Grandmom, actually.
Okay, come on. Hold on.
Just let them listen to it. What do you
Here's what I
care?
don't like. Did you watch Euphoria at all on HBO?
No, I refuse.
Okay, but you kind of got to, and then you'll
I'm not
understand a
going to.
little
Why?
bit of the. Because you'll see.
It's a fictional show. Why should
But
I
it's
think?
not.
Well, it's Los
a,
Angeles,
It's
perhaps.
a parallel
Right?
of the way kids are being influenced by things like that. But anyway, I'm taking you down a rabbit
Yeah, but
hole.
people were mad about Elvis, and it didn't end up being the great disaster of our time. Remember, pelvis swell.
Have you listened to some of these lyrics? I'll give you a real life
I would
example.
agree.
A real life example. Without naming names, there are quite a few young men in my life. 30, I have much younger siblings. They have friends. Long story short is now these boys are not able to get an erection.
Because of porn online. I
and
would
the
agree.
music is like triple X. I don't want my son thinking of women this way. I don't want him having a problem getting an erection if a girl's not squirting, sorry. But it's like, I kind of could, I'm being honest with you though, I could take it down at 10 notches.
Right. So do your job as a parent and don't let them use that.
I am, but it's not that simple. You know that.
Well, in my case it is, because my ex-wife was the CTO of America, and I'm a really good technologist, so my kids never put anything over on us.
The friends' houses?
No.
The burner phones?
No, they're not allowed to have them. I mean, parents have to parent at some point, right? And the problem is parents are addicted. That's the bigger problem. The sex stuff and the pornography with young men is a real issue. The issue of young men consuming pornography, and the same thing for girls with their self-esteem. The impact of this is definitely, but guess what? We have had this issue before, and we've had regulators that say, again, age gating. They shouldn't be on until they're 16. They shouldn't be allowed. Like I just interviewed the Surgeon General, and we talked about the idea of putting warning labels on social media and other things.
It won't work.
It's a stunt.
It didn't
I get
work
it.
on cigarettes.
It did a little bit. That's not true. It was one of the many tools. It doesn't have to be the only tool. Okay. I don't agree with warning labels because I don't think in this case it'll work, because there's positive aspects to social media and there's negative aspects. And cigarettes, just negative, right?
100%.
Right. So it doesn't. Yeah. That's difficult. I think what you have to do is you've got to do a number of things. One is you have to promote community-based activities for your kids where they're in the real IRL. in real life. And you have to also make yourself educated on what they're using. I think a lot of parents go, I don't know. Well, guess what? Figure it the fuck out, because they're your kids, right? Like someone's like, Kara, help me solve this. I'm like, you need to get in there and you need to try it and you need to understand what they're consuming. So I think one of the things you have to do is do your job as a parent and not feel so overwhelmed by it. Or don't have kids. Like you either do one or the other. And you should really, I pay a lot of attention to what my kids consume on everything. Like, don't eat that. Don't do. I'm like, here's what's going to happen to you if you do it. Here's what you're going to do. And you should, and especially with I have 2 older sons. And one of the things I've spent a lot of time on, especially personally, I think lesbians should raise all the kids because they come out fantastic. They're macho and sensitive. It's astonishing. It's an astonishing situation. So much healthier.
No, don't alienate all my straight.
I'm just telling you, straight ladies, give your kid.
You guys are great moms.
Give your kid to a lesbian. Give your kid to a lesbian for 4 weeks in the summer, and they'll come back fantastic. One of my kids' girlfriends said, thank you. He's such a good boyfriend. And yes, I designed him that way. That is correct. I designed him to be. But one of the things we spent a lot of time doing was talking about how you talk to girls and how you deal with them and how you treat them. And let's begin with that. And you treat them as if they are intelligent beings on the planet. And I think one of the things that happens with online is they get so much information that's so bad. And you yourself aren't an expert on some of these things.
100%.
And so you end up arguing facts with them, which is not a good thing when you're arguing facts. Because there are certain facts. This happened, this happened, this happened. And facts have become opinions now, which is not what they are. They are not. It's one way of looking at it, and you could look at it this way. And so what I tend to do is try to base them in facts as a parent, and then examine what they're looking at so that I spend time, because parenting is a lifelong job, right? People don't think of it that way. But I spend a lot of time saying, okay, you consume this. Can you look at this? Can you see this? Do you understand what you're getting? Instead of saying you're stupid or that's wrong or this and that, you say, why do you think that? And I think parents just have got to put in their shoulder to it when they're dealing with these kids and learn if you're worried about euphoria, understand what the drugs are being used. Understand, we had unfortunately a parent whose kid died of something he bought on the mail. It wasn't even like fentanyl. It was something even lesser. And it was 10 times the amount that it said on the bottle, right? It was an accident. It was a terrible accident born of bad products, right? Kind of stuff. And I sat down my sons. I said, listen to me. Like, I get people use drugs. I understand it. But look at this. What you're getting may not be what you want. You've got to be extra careful. Yeah. My one son reacted by buying all the kits that test everything. I'm like, how about you don't use it? And of course, he was like, I'm going to get all the kits. I'm like, no kits. Don't get, get kits.
But it is an interesting, I just interviewed this journalist, Paul Solotaroff, who wrote this whole piece in Rolling Stone called Gone in a Snap. Mm-hmm. And it's about the opioid crisis with kids buying these drugs on Snapchat.
Everything's online.
And it's now becomes a question of, are you arming your child with fentanyl strips, or are you saying just don't do it? Or what? How do you, what's the right conversation to have?
Right.
Because I would have been that cool mom that was like, oh, okay, you want to try it? Okay, let's not get in the car. Who are you with? Who's designated? What? Don't mix. Now I'm like, you might get once, babe.
Right, that's correct. That's the issue, is the availability and stuff like that. But it was available other times. It's just more available. Same thing with online discourse and everything else. It's amplified, it's everywhere, and it's ubiquitous. Yeah. And so, if that's the case, and
deadly,
and it's necessary.
Cocaine wasn't deadly when I was 20.
Again, this is necessary. It's not just that. You can't do your job in the future unless you understand digital, right? You can't. So it has to occupy. It's the oxygen that we live in now. And so if it's the oxygen, again, getting back to it, we need to have a fact-based, regulatorily smart, protects innovation at the same time, understands the dangers that these things create, and then protect people from it, because it is hard to resist, just the way you deal with food all the time. All those foods are addictive, and they are designed and chemically designed to be addictive.
Absolutely.
So is this.
So I'm gonna hold you to this.
Okay.
No matter who becomes president, you would be willing to fix a lot of this tech shit with them?
I think they can't have me in there because some of the tech people think I'm mean to them because they're 12-year-old children.
Revered, I know.
No, they're 12-year-old children, and I'm talking about.
But let's presume we were in a universe where we could bifurcate all of that bullshit, and you could start
If I could be
getting some
effective.
common sense laws,
Yes.
you'd work across the aisles.
I have talked to Mike Gallagher. I've talked to all kinds of people. I've worked with them.
Okay, so then that's what we need to push for.
But I'm not arguing with idiots. I'm not going to argue with people that don't want to do something about it. Don't want to solve things.
That. I know what you
Why
mean.
would I waste my time with people who don't want to make solutions?
You're absolutely right.
And they don't want to make solutions. They don't want to make it better for kids. They don't want to make it safer for kids. They don't want to protect your privacy.
You know how to do it. And you're telling us to be hopeful.
Yes.
And certain laws do need to pass.
Yes.
You're telling us to unite on an issue.
Pass Amy Klobuchar's bills. For years and
like
years,
her.
I interviewed her, and she tried her damnedest. And the tech companies did their business, which is pay lobbyists to ruin it for her. And all the politicians fell into line with the lobbyists. Now, do I blame the tech companies for doing that? I do not. I blame our legislators who don't have a sense of protecting our kids online, protecting our data, that is our data, right? And stopping us from being controlled by a small cabal of people. They may be good people, and I will absolutely end with this. Years ago, when Google tried to buy Yahoo, which at the time search was it, that was the game. They tried to control or buy Yahoo, which would have given them a 94% market share, more than that, 97%. 97% for one company running search. Search was at the center of the internet ecosystem. I wrote a piece. I used a Dr. Seuss crime. They could not own it all, like something like that. And then a line I put in there because I had covered the Microsoft trial when they were ascended and they were controlling far too much of the ecosystem. And I said, at least Microsoft knew they were thugs, because it's thuggish to want to control 90% of anything, right? You can't. There's no innovation when someone controls 90%. There's no new companies. There's no exciting ideas. There's no entrepreneurship when big companies control. No matter who they are, there's no entrepreneurship when that happens. Nothing can bubble up. Solutions can't bubble up. And so I write this. One of the Google founders called me, and he said, you know us. We're not thugs. We're good people. That's what they said to me. We're good people. And I said, maybe. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can acknowledge that. And they said, well, how could you say we're thugs? And I said, because I am worried not about you necessarily, although I'm a little worried about you. You seem odd. But I'm worried about the people that are coming. And I quoted Yeats, and I said, what rough beast is slouching towards Bethlehem waiting to be born? Who is coming? Who is bad, who doesn't like us, who wants to ruin our American democracy, who is coming, because the bad people are coming. They always show up. They never don't show up, right? When technology changes, they use it for evil. They do it. And people it's either a weapon or a tool, but it's definitely a weapon, and I'm worried about them. And of course, they were like, what are you talking about, rough beast? I'm like, I know you didn't take poetry in college, so let's move on from that. Someday, a bad person is coming to take your technology. I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about the bad person, because the bad person will come. They will. There's too much power.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, you don't even understand how badly this could go if it's in the wrong hands, right? And so that was my concern. And so my concern is bad people taking things that could help people and make a better planet for all of us. But when it's concentrated in the hands of a small group of ultra-wealthy people who continue to get advantage based on their wealth, not based on their qualities, that bothers me. And so that's what I would fight against.
Well, I completely agree with you.
See, we agree.
We agreed on a lot of stuff, I think.
Yes.
And
who should play me in the movie of my book? I just sold it to Hollywood. I need a believable lesbian.
I can't act to save my life,
No.
but if you need a trainer to play
No.
yourself.
I need a believable lesbian. I think Kristen Stewart should play me. Which I literally just sold it to Hollywood yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've got to find a believable lesbian. That's what I'm working on.
Thank you. You're wonderful.
Thank you.
I appreciate you
Thank you.
being open-minded.
And good luck with your show.
Keeping it real with Jillian Michaels.